The sign said, "Welcome to Orchard's Rest. Population 294." And beneath, in hand-painted lettering, "Please respect the silence." I should have turned around then, but I didn't. I'd been on the road for nearly a week. A solo trip across the rural spine of Oregon, an attempt to get away from everything. My job, my ex, the noise of the city. I wanted old towns and forgotten corners of America. The kind of places people drive through and never think of again. I was collecting photographs for a personal project. Rustic storefronts, cracked windows, empty main streets. That morning, something strange had started happening. First, my phone died. I don't mean the battery drained. I mean the screen froze, turned black, and refused to respond. I tried rebooting it, tried plugging it in. Nothing. Then my car's built-in GPS glitched out. It froze on a static map somewhere east of Tillamook. I reached into the glove box for my backup compass, only to find it spinning slowly, dizzily, as though the magnetic field around me had given up. I pulled over at a gravel split in the road, unsure which way to go. There were no signs, no landmarks, just a crooked wooden post with half the arrows missing. One pointed right. The paint was faded, but I made out 2 words: Orchard's Rest. The road was narrow and winding, the pines tall and suffocating. After 20 minutes of driving, I passed the sign, and everything got weird. Orchard's Rest looked like a town stuck in amber, like someone had poured molasses over 1953 and left it to harden. The storefronts were made of weathered wood, each with white trim. Some were falling apart. Others looked freshly painted. A barber pole stood motionless outside an old brick building, but the windows were dusty, and the chairs inside were draped in white sheets. An old woman swept the front step of a bakery. Her broom never touched the ground. It took me a few minutes to realize what was wrong. There were no doors. None. No front doors. No back doors. No visible way to enter or exit any of the buildings. Shops had open signs hung in their windows. But how could they be open? The general store had canned goods stacked in the display window, lit by flickering yellow bulbs. I walked around the building twice. Nothing. Just blank walls, old brick, and sealed shutters. I crossed the street. A gas station stood on the corner with a full-service sign. The pumps were ancient. No card readers. Just analog dials. I parked next to one and got out. There was no bell, no motion sensor. Just the quiet hum of summer insects and the faint smell of oil. Across the lot sat a man on a bench. Tall. Thin. Wearing overalls and a beige cap. He was completely still, so still I thought he was a mannequin at first. I walked toward him. "Excuse me," I said. "Can you tell me where I am?" His eyes moved before his head did. A slow, grinding motion like it hurt to turn. He stared at me with pale, watery eyes and sun-damaged skin. "You're here," he said. I swallowed. "Right. But where exactly is here? I think I took a wrong turn." He looked past me, toward the road I had come from. "There's no road behind you." I turned instinctively, and my stomach dropped. He was right. Where there had been a 2-lane road surrounded by trees, now there was only dense brush and tall wheat swaying in the wind. No gravel. No tire tracks. No way out. I spent the next hour wandering the town, hoping to find a ranger station, a payphone, anything. But the people here didn't speak to me. They noticed me, yes. Some nodded. Some gave polite half-smiles. But no one actually stopped. No one asked who I was. No one seemed surprised to see a stranger in their town. And no one seemed to mind the lack of doors. At one point, I saw a young woman push a stroller past me. The baby inside stared with unblinking eyes and a mouth that seemed too wide. For just a second, I thought its pupils were slit, like a goat's. But when I blinked, the baby had turned its head away, and the moment was gone. Finally, as dusk crept in, I returned to where my car had been parked. It was gone. No skid marks. No broken glass. No sign of theft. Just an empty patch of gravel. That was when I saw the sign down the block. The Orchard's Rest, Lodging available. I hadn't noticed it before. It looked like it had been freshly painted. There was no door, just a long curtain swaying in the breeze. I stepped through. The lobby was dim, lit by a single chandelier. There was no clerk, no voices, no sound at all. A bell sat on the counter. A guest book lay open beside it. I looked down. My name was written there already, first and last, spelled correctly. There was only one room listed as vacant, room 3. The lights down the hallway blinked on one by one, as if inviting me in. I slept terribly. The mattress was old. The walls were thin. The wallpaper peeled at the corners and revealed patterns underneath that didn't quite look like more wallpaper, almost like veins. At around 2:30 a.m., I woke to a sound. Scratching. Not at the window. Not at the walls. Under the bed. I froze. My mouth went dry. The air in the room felt heavy, like I was underwater. Then a voice, right next to my ear. Familiar. Exactly like mine. It whispered, "You shouldn't have come here. I'm already you." I didn't move for hours. I lay frozen in that dusty bed, the whispered words still ringing in my ears. I'm already you. It wasn't a dream. I know the difference between a nightmare and a voice with breath on your neck. Something had spoken in my voice, and it was in the room with me. When the sun finally crept through the window, dull and too pale for morning, I bolted upright. I glanced beneath the bed. Nothing. No dust. No floorboards. Just polished, stone-like wood that felt warm to the touch. I dressed quickly and grabbed my backpack, but when I opened the door to the hallway, the entire building had changed. The carpet was gone. The wallpaper peeled upward like it was breathing. The light fixtures flickered in sync with my footsteps. I ran for the lobby, and there was no lobby. Just a wall, and a single note pinned to it. Return to your place before dusk. The town opens after dark. I turned in a circle. The hallway stretched longer behind me now, seemingly endless, but my room door was gone. The building was rearranging itself. I did what anyone would do. I screamed, and the walls screamed back. When I stumbled back outside, blinking against the too white sky, I found the townspeople already moving. They all walked in perfect rhythm, slow, synchronized steps like something was guiding them. No one looked at me. No one acknowledged I had stayed the night. The man in overalls from the gas station sat on the same bench. I ran to him. "Please," I said, my voice cracking. "What is this place? Why are there no doors? Why can't I leave?" He blinked slowly. "You've already left," he replied. "You just don't know where you arrived." "That doesn't make sense. Sense doesn't live here anymore," he muttered and turned away. I staggered through the town again, trying to make sense of the layout. But everything had subtly shifted. The general store now stood where the diner had been. The post office, which had a painted-on clock faced the day before, now had no windows at all. No matter which way I turned, I ended up back at the same center intersection, like the town was folding in on itself. Worse still, the doors had returned. They weren't real, not exactly. Some had been carved crudely into the wooden walls, as though someone had taken an axe and tried to cut their way out. Others were just painted on, illusions of doors with brass doorknobs and keyholes, but flat, two-dimensional fakes. And yet, I heard things behind them. Voices, footsteps, whispers, scratching, breathing. The woman with the stroller passed me again. This time, the baby was gone. The stroller empty. I asked, "Where is your baby?" She smiled too wide. "What baby?" I backed away. Around noon, I found a place that hadn't been there the day before, the Historical Museum of Orchard's Rest. The sign was carved into a plank of pale oak. The front was all glass, though the reflections showed an empty field instead of the street behind me. Inside, displays lined the walls. Paintings, yellowed newspapers, photos that were too blurry to make out. I stepped in carefully. It was the first time I had entered a building here without crossing a curtain. The first exhibit was titled, "The Day the Doors Were Sealed, 1841. A plaque beneath read, To protect the living from the returning, the doors of Orchard's Rest were removed and sealed by covenant. Those who crossed the threshold uninvited brought the hollow with them. Those who remained adapted. I stared at the photo beneath it. It showed townsfolk standing in front of houses with nailed boards where the doors should be. One man held a hammer. His face was familiar. It was me. I backed away and nearly collided with a second display. Record of outsiders. My name was there. My full name. And below it, today's date. I didn't understand. I couldn't. Was it a prank? A dream? Then I noticed something else. The names above mine were all scratched out. Some were old and faded. Others looked recent. I turned and ran. I don't remember how I got out of the museum, but I remember the feeling. The floor didn't want me to leave. It felt sticky, pulling at my shoes like the building itself was trying to keep me. When I reached the street, I saw it. A figure standing in the middle of the intersection. Identical to me. Same face. Same clothes. Same bag over the shoulder. He waved. I ran. That night, I tried to stay awake. I locked myself in what looked like an abandoned schoolhouse, though of course, the door was just a hole in the wall. I blocked it with a filing cabinet and dragged a desk across it. I heard them moving outside. Not just footsteps. Skittering. Shifting. Dragging. Something scraped along the windows. Around 3:17 a.m., the lights came on. Not in the room. Outside. The entire street glowed, and I heard what sounded like 100 voices all whispering at once. He's still inside. He brought the door with him. We'll split him open and pull the key from his heart. I didn't sleep. When I looked out the window just before dawn, the streets were clean again. Silent. Empty. And someone had left a note carved into the glass. You've already let it in. I woke at dawn with blood in my mouth. Not mine. I checked. No cuts, no injuries. Just the sharp copper tang coating my teeth and tongue, like I'd been licking old pennies in my sleep. It coated my gums, my pillowcase, my thoughts. The desk I'd used to block the entryway had been moved. Not fully, just a few inches off from where I'd left it. But that was enough. Something had been in the room. The air still carried the scent of rot, like wetwood and spoiled milk. I don't know how long I sat there, breathing shallowly, not daring to move. But when I finally stood, something sharp crunched under my foot. A key. Silver. Still warm. Tied to it was a tag. Return to Yo where you began. I stuffed the key in my pocket and stepped outside. The town had changed again. I don't mean a few stores were rearranged. I mean the entire layout had mutated. Buildings now leaned at impossible angles. Streets coiled and doubled back like intestines. The sky was bruised violet even though it was early morning. The horizon pulsed like a living thing. And everywhere I turned, I saw them. Copies. Clones. Duplicates of me. Wandering. Watching. Moving in slow loops. One stood across from me, mimicking my every move with a slight delay, like a warped reflection. I raised my hand. It did the same, but its smile was wrong, too wide. Too many teeth. Its eyes were completely black. I ducked behind an alley and ran until my legs gave out. Eventually, I found the church. It sat at the edge of town, or what looked like an edge. Its spire stretched high above the rooftops, but the cross at its peak had been replaced with a strange ring of keys. Rusted, interlocked, fused into a circle like a crown of jagged metal. The sign read, St. Dimphna's Shelter for the Returned. Below it, confess what you brought in. I pushed through the curtain that served as a door, expecting pews, stained glass, or at least a crucifix. But instead, the sanctuary was empty. Just rows of chairs all facing a massive wooden slab mounted on the wall. A door. A real one. It was old, cracked, covered in carvings I couldn't read. And it was bleeding. Thick, black ichor oozed from the keyhole, running down the grain and pooling on the floor like ink. And hanging above it was a painting. It was me. An old woman entered from behind a curtain. She wore a veil and walked with a crooked cane that clicked rhythmically as she approached. Her voice sounded like someone flipping through old paper. You found the key. I swallowed. What is this place? This is the town that swallowed us in. She gestured to the door. We built this place without exits. Because exits let things in. But someone always brings their own door. That's what you did, outsider. You walked in open. I didn't ask to come here. No one does, she said. And yet, they do. The hollow waits for an opening. She stepped closer, lifting the veil. Her eyes were gone, hollowed out like dark craters. And now it wears your skin. If you leave without closing the door, the rest of you will keep leaking through. I staggered backward. I don't understand any of this. What's happening to me? She tilted her head. You were photographing forgotten things, weren't you? My heart stuttered. How do you know that? You point your lens at things you shouldn't see. But the hollow likes being remembered. That's how it spreads. I looked again at the key. It vibrated faintly in my hand. Return to where you began, I murmured. The woman nodded. Follow the door that follows you. I left the church and tried to trace my steps back. But the town was no longer even pretending to obey geometry. Streets twisted like Mobius strips. Buildings pulsed when I got near them. The people, the things, now watched openly. One man with a stitched-up face called out, You're leaking. You're leaking. Another waved a photo. It was a picture of me sleeping in last night's room. I had never seen the photo taken. I pushed past them all. Eventually, I found the orchard's Rest Inn again, though it now stood upside down, its porch on the roof, its chimney spewing whispers instead of smoke. I stepped inside. The hallway was dark and wet, like stepping into the throat of something ancient. But room 3 was still there. Only now the number had been replaced by a symbol, a circle with 3 slashes through it. I held the key tight and turned the knob. The room was empty, but not untouched. Photos covered the bed. Hundreds of them. Every one of them of me. Sleeping. Walking. Screaming. Standing in front of buildings I didn't remember visiting. And in each one, something in the background. A figure. Always watching. Always just out of focus. Sometimes wearing my clothes. Sometimes wearing my face. A mirror leaned against the far wall. I stepped toward it and saw myself. But I wasn't alone. My reflection blinked after I did. Suddenly, the mirror cracked. A voice behind me whispered, You let me out. I turned and saw the curtain sway open. The hallway now stretched into impossible darkness, deeper than the building's size could allow. And somewhere at the end, I heard a door slam shut. I had no idea where it led, but I knew I had to go there. I stepped into the dark hallway. Behind me, the door to room 3 slammed shut, and the sound echoed like a gunshot. Ahead, the corridor narrowed, warping like the inside of a tunnel, wetwood creaking with every step, ceiling too low, floor too soft, as if I were walking on something living. There were no lights, just a faint glow that pulsed from beneath the floorboards, a dull red like the heartbeat of a dying thing. My phone buzzed suddenly in my pocket. I hadn't used it in days, hadn't been able to use it. But now the screen glowed, showing a single message. You are inside the memory. Don't let it forget you. The screen flickered, then died again. I kept moving. Eventually, the hallway opened into a vast chamber, cavernous and low, with walls covered in peeling wallpaper and black mold that moved when I stared at it too long. In the center of the room stood a tree, an orchard tree, gnarled and bare, its bark blackened like it had been burned from the inside. From its branches hung objects, some familiar, some horrifying. A rusted car key, my childhood teddy bear, a noose, a motel room key marked 3, a photo of me and my sister from when I was 10, and on the ground beneath the tree, a pit, circular, perfect, not dug, but grown. At its edge sat a girl no older than 10, drawing something in the dirt with her fingers. Her eyes were completely white. When she looked up, she smiled. I remember you, she said. I hesitated. Who are you? I'm what was left behind. She held up the dirt drawing. It was a door. I don't understand, I whispered. What is this place? She looked down at her hands. It used to be a town, she said. But then people stopped leaving and started bringing things in they shouldn't. Memories. Regrets. Openings. Holes in themselves. She tapped her temple. Little doors in your head. That's all it takes. Why me? I asked. She tilted her head. Because you came here looking for something you lost. That's all this place ever is. A reflection. A trap made of you. She reached into her pocket and handed me something. A small, wooden figurine. It was me, my likeness carved perfectly. Hold on to this, she said. You'll need to remember which one is real. Then she pointed to the pit. That's where the hollow feeds. And that's where it keeps the exits. I knelt by the edge and peered in. It wasn't a hole. It was a spiral. A stairway carved into bone. Every step pulsed, and the walls were covered in hundreds of hands, some reaching inward, others outward. All twitching. I took a deep breath. And I went down. The deeper I descended, the quieter everything became. The air turned thick, syrupy, heavy with static. My ears popped. My thoughts slowed. Somewhere far above, I heard the child's voice again. If you hear your name, don't answer. I didn't know what that meant until I heard my own voice in the darkness. Please, help me. I'm still down here. I kept walking. The spiral led to a circular chamber lit by hanging lanterns made of teeth. Dozens of figures stood motionless, facing the center. I couldn't see their faces, but their bodies were familiar. They were all me. Copies. Projections. Twisted versions. One was wearing the clothes I had on 3 days ago. Another had no face. One had burned skin and whispered over and over, I never should have come here. They formed a ring around a final door. A real one. Not painted. Not imagined. Carved from dark wood, bound in metal, with hundreds of keyholes running down its center like a spine. And in front of it, someone waited. He was identical to me. But not me. He looked older. Worn. His skin too tight. His teeth too sharp. He smiled. You're late. What is this? I asked, voice shaking. This is the point of no return, he said. You've wandered so far into yourself, you forgot you left the real world behind. That's the trick of the hollow. It isn't a place. It's a mirror. He stepped closer. You brought the door when you came. Your memories. Your obsessions. You kept photographing old places because you were afraid of disappearing. Afraid of being forgotten. He reached into his coat and pulled out something. My camera. But it was melted. Twisted. Screaming with the faces of every place I'd photographed. The shutter clicked on its own. Each time it clicked, a door opened behind me. I didn't look. He held out the key I'd found earlier. It only works if you choose the right version of yourself to unlock the exit. Choose wrong, and the door opens for it. What if I don't choose at all? Then you stay here, he said. Like the rest of us. I looked around the chamber. All the versions of me stared, silent, waiting. Then I looked down at the wooden figurine the girl had given me. The eyes were scratched out now. It was bleeding. And then I heard it. My sister's voice, calling my name. Don't answer, I whispered to myself. Don't answer. But the door began to glow. And behind it, I saw a shape. Not a person. Not quite. Something with too many arms and a face like mine stitched together from other people's skin. It knocked on the inside of the door. Once. Twice. 3 times. Knock, knock, knock. The knocking stopped. For a moment, the silence felt complete, total, suffocating. The kind of silence that makes your ears ring, your skin crawl, your bones hum. Then the whisper came again. My sister's voice. But not her. Not really. It said, you remember the swing set, don't you? You left me there. You let me fall. I stepped back, nearly tripping over one of the copies of me standing behind. Its hand reached out, not to grab me, but to steady me, like it was trying to help. I stared at the ring of versions around me. They didn't blink, didn't breathe, but something about them changed. Their postures shifted subtly. One by one, they began to tilt their heads, watching me, waiting for me to choose. I looked at the figure who had spoken, the doppelganger that held my ruined camera. You're not me, I said. He grinned wider. His mouth tore at the corners. Not anymore. but I was. You gave me shape when you brought in your guilt. He nodded toward the door. I've waited a long time for someone like you to open the way. I won't do it. You already started to. He held up the figurine the girl had given me. It was hollowed out now, empty, like a shell that had been used. I felt my chest tighten. My memories blurred. I tried to recall my sister's voice, her face, her laugh, but it all flickered, melting like old film in heat. The hollow was eating them, eating me. I closed my eyes and tried to breathe. The words on the museum plaque came back to me. To protect the living from the returning, the doors of Orchard's Rest were sealed by covenant. And I realized something. This place didn't trap people with doors. It trapped them with themselves, with what they couldn't let go of, with what they brought in. I had been carrying a door the whole time. The camera, the photos, the obsession with the forgotten, and worse, my guilt. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the key. It pulsed in my hand, hotter now, like a living coal. The metal twisted slightly as I held it toward the door. The ring of copies started to murmur. Some of them backed away. Others reached out, begging. One screamed, "That's not the real exit. That's the trade." My fingers hovered at the lock. Then I looked at the version of me still smiling by the door. And I threw the key at him. It struck his forehead and burned into his skin, hissing like oil on fire. He screamed, a sound that cracked the ceiling above us, and began to melt. His face sloughed off in ribbons of shadow and ash. The door behind him began to splinter. The chamber rumbled. The spiral stairs behind me collapsed into dust. The pit walls pulsed violently as if the town itself were convulsing. The other copies of me, dozens of them, turned inward, forming a tight circle around me. Their eyes glowed faintly, and then they spoke in unison. "Do you want to leave?" I swallowed. "Yes." "Then forget who you were." I didn't understand. "What does that mean?" "You brought the door. You made the hollow remember. The only way out is to be forgotten." The door cracked open behind them, glowing with warm sunlight. A breeze drifted through, carrying the scent of pine and dust and old road. A voice behind it whispered, "This way." I stepped forward. The figurine in my pocket crumbled to ash. My name slipped from my memory like water through fingers. My sister's face faded. The last photo I'd taken burned in reverse, like someone deleting the world one frame at a time. And still, I walked. Through the door. I woke up on the side of a highway, face down in gravel, mouth dry, blood on my gums. My car sat behind me, parked neatly on the shoulder. My phone rested on the seat, fully charged. No messages. No signs of use. The sky was pale blue. The air was normal again. No scent of rot. No black ichor. No copies of me standing across the street. For a long time, I thought maybe I had dreamed it. Until I opened the glove box and found a single photo. Me, standing in front of a building with no door. Behind me, barely visible in the reflection of a glass window. Someone else with my face. Smiling. I tried to leave the photo at a rest stop that afternoon. But when I opened my wallet the next day, it was there. I burned it. 2 days later, it showed up on my bathroom mirror. Now, every night, I hear it. A knock. Once. Twice. 3 times. From behind the walls. From beneath the bed. From inside the closet. This town has no doors. But something still gets in.